You mess with time, it tends to mess back. You'll see.
Hey everyone, Colton here, and I think that we got our very first tease for Robert Downey Jr.'s big return as Doctor Doom all the way back in 2019 in the post-credit scene for Avengers Endgame. Now, I know what you're thinking. Avengers Endgame had a post-credit scene? Well, kind of. At the very end of the credits, we hear the sound of clanking metal, and it is pulled directly from this scene in the very first Infinity Saga movie, Iron Man. This moment of Tony making his Mark I Iron Mask, which I have speculated will be the mask his Doctor Doom wears, this scene is the origin point for when Tony Stark became Iron Man. And in a splintered timeline, it could be the moment that he became Doctor Doom. And it is of course poetic to hear that sound in the final seconds of the final film of the saga. Okay, technically Far From Home was the final film of the Infinity Saga, but that
doesn't count.
But what would be even more poetic is if this clanking was a tease at the lurking evil to come, a direct consequence of Tony meddling with time. So at the time when Endgame came out, many people, including myself, were speculating on whether or not this metal clanking could be a tease that RDJ's time in the MCU was not truly over. But there was also the possibility, perhaps even the likelihood, that this was just a nice tribute to our sacrificial hero's final film. Kevin Feige said at the time, quote, "It's really just a tribute. It's not meant to tease anything, it's just meant to honor him." But I think he's full of shit. Let me explain why. And in a second, I'm going to share with you a quote from the Avengers Endgame and Avengers Doomsday directors, the Russo Brothers, that lends credence to this theory. And hey, while I have you, be sure to check out this Iron Man and Doctor Doom pointing meme shirt. It's hilarious, and I don't know about you, but I will be wearing mine to the Fantastic Four, and of course to Avengers Doomsday. Okay, so before everything that went down with Jonathan Majors as Kang, Feige had already expressed an interest in pivoting to Doctor Doom. He's had Doom on the mind ever since they got the rights back from Fox. And the Russos have confirmed that the idea to bring back Downey as Doctor Doom was Kevin Feige's idea.
Who came up with the idea to bring Downey Jr. again?
That was Kevin. And interesting enough about that is that conversation was had a while ago.
And I have no doubt in my mind that that's an idea that he has had kicking around in his noggin for a while.
That conversation was had a while ago.
Perhaps even before the release of Avengers Endgame. So while I have no doubt that this sound at the end of Endgame was meant as a tribute to Tony Stark, I think that Feige may have also had the intention of leaving that door open for an RDJ return. And I think there is a specific reason that he chose that exact sound. The Loki series talked non-stop about the concept of an Ouroboros, the reoccurring of events, endings being beginnings. And there is something eerie about Endgame being the final chapter, yet ending with the sound that pretty much started it all, teasing that we are about to go round again. We were, of course, literally about to go round again by starting with a whole brand new saga, but a saga that was going to be about the multiverse, reoccurring events via an Ouroboros, and now we know the return of Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. Now, that moment in the first Iron Man when he is making that mask, it was a defining moment for Tony. His time in the cave is what made him Iron Man. And as we've discussed many times here and over on Screen Crush, RDJ's Doom is very likely going to be a variant with Tony Stark, a version of the same being who went a very different path in life. Now, we of course have a shit ton of theories here on the channel about how this could happen. Maybe Tony was always Victor Von Doom, but got adopted by the Starks. Maybe Steve Rogers' time shenanigans are to blame. Maybe Spider-Man made a deal with the devil, and that is to blame. But regardless of how it happened, I think it all goes back to the likelihood that Tony and Doom will be variants of the same being, meaning that the splinter point for the character could be that moment that Tony Stark became Iron Man, but instead, in this timeline, he became Doctor Doom. You could easily see a scenario where he came out of that cave having learned a very different lesson. Instead of shutting down his weapons manufacturing, he may have ramped it up, becoming an intervening, hawkish, tyrannical wannabe king who sees himself as the world's only hope. And we also see a lot of that in Tony Stark. But an example of what would make Doom different is he would probably never bother with tricking out a new suit with Hot Rod Red because he isn't Tony Stark. Doom would be perfectly content with his original creation, the Mark I. And instead of pursuing further technological advancements, he takes a path similar to that of Stephen Strange. Following his escape from the cave, he may have sustained a serious injury to his face, resulting in him always wearing his mask, the mask that we hear being made in that in-game post-credit sting. And like Stephen Strange sought mystical help to cure his hands, Doom could seek the same mystical help to fix his face. We have to remember that in the comics, Doom's face scar is a huge part of who he is. And he is a master sorcerer, second only to Doctor Strange. And like Doom and Tony share many similarities, so do Tony, Doom, and Stephen Strange. They're all men of science with a really bad case of vanity. I could easily see Doom taking a similar dismissive approach to the Ancient One's teachings, just like Stephen did, but then coming back around and embracing that mystic realm and becoming aware of the multiverse.
Who are you in this vast multiverse?
And this could be the moment that makes Doom realize that not only does he have an entire Earth to conquer in the name of protection, but he has an entire multiverse that needs order. And we have to remember that it's Tony Stark who is responsible for this multiverse even existing. In Avengers Endgame, they're operating in a contained multiverse, the sacred timeline. But when Tony travels back in time and meddles, Loki winds up escaping. Now, we of course learn in the Loki series that this was all part of the plan and was supposed to happen. We also learn that it was He Who Remains that paved the way. But what He Who Remains did not anticipate was Loki's descent. He thought that Loki would either take him up on his offer and maintain the sacred timeline, or that Loki and Sylvie would kill him, the multiversal war would happen again, and He Who Remains would
end up right back here anyways.
But what He Who Remains didn't foresee was Loki's breaking of this loop and the creation of the multiversal tree, an ever-expanding multiverse with free will. A multiverse that allowed for infinite possibilities, possibilities including the emergence of Doctor Doom. The Russos have said that Tony's death in Endgame is directly connected to Doctor Doom. And while I don't know that they personally had any intention of that clanking sound being a tease for Doom at the time, hell, it's possible that they weren't even actually involved with putting that little sound effect on the end tag. However, having said all that, I wouldn't put it past them, and I do think it would be awesome if they retroactively incorporate that little tease at the end of Endgame and have it now be a direct setup for the next Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday. You know, Doctor Doom is reminiscent of the Man in the Iron Mask, something that we actually got a tease at here in What If Season 2. That was of course Bruce Banner, but I, like you, thought for a split second that it might be Doctor Doom. Anyway, a huge part of Doom's essence, like I mentioned earlier, is his scarred face and his mask. And I think it would just be absolutely brilliant for them to show us RDJ hammering away and constructing his Doctor Doom mask when we meet him for the first time, and have that same clanking sound as when Tony made his Iron Man mask. And it would just tie it all together perfectly, but hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know, do you think that that little clanking sound at the end of Endgame was a tease for Doctor Doom, or if they will retroactively make it a tease for Doctor Doom? Maybe Feige had that idea in his back pocket all along, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video. I've been your host, Colton Ogburn, and I will see you next time. Bye!
You're still here. It's over. Go home.